after my neighbor called my home a pervert house and tried to get us evicted just because my teen nephew moved in. He became a shut-in. But when I found her mugshot from another state, I printed it on flyers and passed them out door to door. I knew things had gotten bad when I walked outside one morning and saw a huge piece of neon pink poster board nailed to the fence between my yard and my neighbor's. The letters were thick and black, the kind you draw when you're trying to scream without using your mouth. Pervert house next door. My stomach dropped so hard I felt dizzy. Cars slowed down as they passed. A mom I usually waved to shook her head at me like she'd just found out I poisoned puppies for fun. I wanted to rip the sign down, but my hands were shaking too hard. My nephew, Ryan, was watching from his bedroom window upstairs. He didn't come down. He barely came down for anything anymore. The day he moved in with me, he tried so hard to pretend he wasn't scared. 17 years old, clutching one duffel bag, eyes still red from the weeks he spent in juvenile detention for something he didn't even do. He just needed a stable place to finish school, get therapy, and heal. I promised him he'd be safe here in Surprise, Arizona. I meant it. But then there was her. Sandra, my next-door neighbor, a woman with the permanent expression of someone who smells rotten milk everywhere she goes. She'd been polite the first week, tight smile, nosy questions that fake friendliness people weaponize. Then she saw Ryan, and everything shifted. I remember the moment it flipped. She came out to get her mail while he was unloading groceries from my trunk. Instead of smiling, her face hardened like she'd caught him trying to break into her car. She didn't bother hiding her disgust. "How old is he?" 17, I said. Then she walked back inside like that answered everything. The next few days, she stopped talking to me at all. Then I heard her telling another neighbor that teen boys are dangerous, and you never know what they're capable of. The rumor spread fast, even though no one knew anything except that a teenage boy now lived with me. Then came the petition. I didn't believe it existed until someone from down the street slipped a note under my door, apologizing and saying they refused to sign. Sandra had gone door to door telling people she was trying to protect the neighborhood and that boys like him always escalate. She even hinted he had charges for something sexual, which wasn't true at all. Ryan heard everything through the walls, every whisper, every side-eye, every rumor. He locked himself in his room for 3 days straight. I tried to handle it the adult way. Emailing the HOA, documenting harassment, even knocking on her door once to talk it out. She didn't open it. She shouted through the wood, "I don't trust teen boys, they're all the same." I'm protecting people. 2 days later, the sign showed up. That was when something inside me snapped, not in a loud, dramatic way, but in that quiet, steady way that always leads to something irreversible. Because I wasn't just angry. I was done. I went inside, got my laptop, and started digging. I didn't know exactly what I was looking for. I just knew people like Sandra don't come from nowhere. They always leave a trail. It took me 20 minutes. 20 minutes before I found the mugshot. Her mugshot, from another state, booked under her maiden name. The charge, that's where things get dark, and where everything started to make sense. The mugshot rattled me so hard I had to sit down on the edge of my bed just to breathe. The picture didn't look like the Sandra I knew now. No short, stiff haircut, no thin-lipped permanent scowl. In the photo, she had longer hair, less weight on her face, and this wild, panicked look in her eyes. But it was her, same nose, same jaw, same eyes, same person. Her maiden name was right there on the arrest record. I checked the address history. It lined up. She lived in Mesa under that old name until she moved to Surprise 5 years ago and reinvented herself. Before I get into what I found, I need to explain something first. Why I took in Ryan, why he ended up with me, and why I was already stretched so thin before Sandra even entered the picture. Ryan is my sister's kid. My sister, Danielle, is a good mom at heart, but she's had a rough run. She married the wrong man, stayed too long, picked up too many unhealthy coping habits, and lost control of her life one piece at a time. When Ryan was arrested, she panicked. She couldn't handle the legal process or the stress. She just shut down. The charges were stupid. Someone in his friend group spray-painted obscene stuff on the wall of their high school. Ryan didn't even do it. He was just there. Wrong place, wrong time. The The school freaked out because it involved sexual drawings. Cops got involved. Every kid pointed at someone else, and Ryan became the easiest target because he didn't fight back. He froze up and shut down during questioning. That made him look guilty. He spent a few weeks in juvenile detention until they cleared him, but by then the damage was done. The label stuck in people's heads. My sister was a wreck, so I told her I'd take him, give him a clean slate, a quiet place, somewhere he could finish school without feeling like a walking scandal. I meant every word. And for the first few weeks, it actually seemed like we were going to be okay. He got his GED prep materials. He joined me on morning walks. He cooked dinner with me sometimes. He even laughed again. Then Sandra started watching us. I noticed little things first. Her blinds shifting when Ryan was outside. Her slowing down when she saw him through the fence. Her glaring at him walking to the mailbox like he had no right to touch the ground. I tried to brush it off as her being weird. Not everyone likes teens. Not everyone is friendly. But then she'd say things that didn't feel normal. Once, when I was pulling weeds by the fence, she leaned over and said, "Boys his age can't control themselves. You need to watch him all the time." I remember staring at her, trying to figure out where that was coming from. She didn't elaborate, she just walked away. Then the whispers started, the comments. The questions from neighbors about what kind of trouble he'd gotten into. I kept telling myself she was just paranoid. Maybe she had bad experiences. Maybe she was just overly protective. But when I saw that mugshot, when I saw the charge next to her name and read the court summary, it all snapped into focus. Everything she'd said, everything she'd done, everything she'd accused, and the sickest part. Her reason for being scared of teenage boys had nothing to do with protecting the neighborhood. It had everything to do with what she did. And who she did it to. I didn't confront her right away. I didn't even know how to process what I'd found. I just sat there staring at the arrest record, rereading the same lines, feeling the pieces click together in a way that made my skin crawl. The charge was bad enough. The details were worse. But what really messed with me was realizing that every time she glared at Ryan, every time she whispered that boys like him escalate, every time she walked around the neighborhood warning people about him, she wasn't speaking from fear. She was projecting hard. I shut my laptop and walked into Ryan's room. He was sitting at his desk, hoodie on, headphones off, staring at nothing. A half-eaten granola bar sat on his dresser. He hadn't touched the dinner I left him. "Hey," I said softly. "You want to take a walk?" He shook his head. I sat on the carpet near his chair. "You know none of this is your fault, right?" He didn't answer. He just pulled his knees up a little tighter. The kid didn't deserve any of this. He'd already been dragged through the mud for something he didn't do. And now he was reliving the whole nightmare all over again because some bitter neighbor decided he fit the story in her head. I stayed with him for a while. Eventually, he mumbled, "Can we move? I don't want to be here." It broke me. Because I had just gotten approved for remote work at my new job. I had just finished unpacking. I had just spent half my savings turning this house into a place Ryan could feel safe. I had told him this place would be different. And now, he wanted to disappear again. That night, I heard Sandra outside talking to somebody. Her voice carried through the open window. "I'm telling you, it's risky having someone like him here. They never stop at small things. That's how it starts." I closed the window before Ryan could hear more. The next morning, the sign went up. I walked outside, took one look at it, and something inside me hardened. I wasn't going to let Ryan lose another place. I wasn't going to let him think the world just gets to stomp on him and walk away. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let Sandra do this without consequences. But the escalation didn't stop with the sign. By the next afternoon, she had printed flyers. Actual flyers. She taped them to mailboxes, lamp posts, door frames. Each one said the same thing. "Beware, teen male with a history of destructive behavior lives at my address. Protect your kids." No name, no phone. Just vague fear and a big arrow pointing at my house. When I tore one down, she came outside holding her stupid little dog like a shield. "You can take them down," she shrugged, "but I'm just going to put up more." People deserve to know. My jaw clenched so hard it hurt. You're harassing a teenager who hasn't done anything to you. Not yet, she said, but they always do. That word always sent a chill through me, because after what I'd read about her past, I knew exactly why she said it. Neighbors started whispering more openly now. One woman from 3 houses down asked why I'd taken someone like that. Another suggested having a meeting about the situation. And Ryan, he stopped coming downstairs at all. I knew then this wasn't going to go away quietly. She had declared a war, and if she wanted a war, she was about to get one. Because the mugshot wasn't even the worst thing I found, not by a long shot. The mugshot alone was enough to tear her whole reputation apart, but what came with it, the court summary, the sentencing notes, the victim's statement, was what made my stomach turn. Because the victim wasn't some adult neighbor or coworker. It was a teenage boy, 14 years old, and the details of what she'd done to him weren't vague or ambiguous. They were spelled out in clean, cold, emotionless legal language. She had manipulated him, cornered him. Lied to investigators, blamed him when she was caught. The court documents were brutal. The judge's notes said she showed a disturbing lack of remorse. The psychological evaluation said she had a pattern of externalizing blame. The victim's family said she made their son afraid to go outside. All those things she kept projecting onto Ryan, every accusation, every paranoid whisper, every boys like him are dangerous. Those weren't warnings. They were confessions she never intended anyone to hear. I should have expected what came next, but I didn't. The betrayal wasn't the mugshot. It was what she'd already done behind the scenes. Because while I was sitting there shaking with anger, a police cruiser rolled slowly down our street, stopped right in front of my driveway, and just sat there. The officer got out, walked toward my house, and knocked. When I opened the door, he gave me this rehearsed, uncomfortable half-smile that cops use when they don't want to escalate a situation but have to follow through anyway. "Afternoon," he said. "We've received a concerning call from a neighbor about a minor living here." My heart dropped so fast it felt like falling. She claimed there were suspicious behaviors, that the minor might be a threat. She also said she heard yelling and possible violence. I blinked. None of that happened. He nodded like he already knew. "Look, I'm required to check. Can I talk to him?" Ryan came downstairs slowly, hoodie pulled low, hands trembling. The officer asked him routine questions. Was he okay? Did he feel safe? Was anyone hurting him? Did he have conflicts with neighbors? Ryan kept his answers short and shaky. When the officer left, he paused in my doorway and lowered his voice. "I don't think the call was about him doing anything. I think someone wants him removed from the home." Someone, Sandra, she hadn't just smeared him. She had tried to start a record, something official, something that would stick. And that was the moment, standing there with the officer walking back to his car, Ryan shaking beside me, neighbors peeking out their windows, that I realized this wasn't harassment anymore. It was elimination. She wanted him out of the neighborhood, out of my home, maybe even back in custody. She wanted him ruined. Why? To distract everyone from her own past, to flip the narrative before anyone ever looked her way. To punish someone who reminded her of the boy she hurt. I didn't know the exact reason yet. But I knew this. She had crossed a line she couldn't uncross. I closed the door and locked it. Then I went back to my laptop and typed her name again, her current married name, her maiden name, the aliases she used in court. And that was when I found the second file. The one that didn't just explain her fear. The one that explained her fury. The one that showed what she'd done after the conviction. And who she'd done it to. I didn't sleep that night. I just sat at my kitchen table with the glow of my laptop burning into my eyes as I read through the second file. The one buried deeper. The one that didn't show up unless you searched her maiden name, her married name, and the out-of-state county where she used to live. It wasn't another arrest record. It was a civil lawsuit, filed by the victim's family after she served her sentence. And in the complaint, they accused her of something even worse than the original crime, harassing them after she got out. They said she stalked their street. She sent anonymous letters to neighbors accusing the boy of lying to ruin her life. She tried to get him banned from a local community center. She spread rumors to other parents claiming he was a danger to girls his age. Sound familiar? Same pattern, Same wording, same obsession. She had done this exact thing before, and now she was doing it to my nephew. Except this time, she had a whole neighborhood ready to listen. My heart was pounding so hard I could hear it echoing in the metal fridge door. I felt sick. But underneath the fear, underneath the shaking, something colder started forming. Something steady. I wasn't going to let her destroy this kid. I wasn't going to let her rewrite his life the way she'd tried with that other boy. And I sure as hell wasn't going to let her hide behind the fake smile she used with the HOA and the neighbors. She declared war. Fine, I could wage one too, but it had to be done smart, clean, legal, undeniable, so I made a plan. Step 1, gather everything. I printed every flyer she'd taped around town. I photographed the giant, pervert house next door sign. I saved screenshots of every neighborhood Facebook comment she'd made hinting about a dangerous teen. I pulled the police report from the wellness check she set up. I saved all her old arrest records, the mugshot, the civil suit, and the dates. I put everything in a binder, a literal binder. I labeled it Documented Harassment, S, maiden name, last name. Step 2, get witnesses. I talked to the neighbor who slipped the apology note under my door. He agreed to give a statement. Another neighbor admitted Sandra said Ryan should be monitored because he could escalate. She agreed to talk too. Step 3. Give Ryan a safe place to land emotionally. I brought home his favorite ice cream. I sat on the floor with him and watched dumb videos until he cracked a smile. I didn't tell him everything. I didn't want him carrying all that weight, but I told him I had a plan. He nodded, eyes tired but trusting. That look alone could have kept me going through fire. Step 4, go to the HOA, quietly, with proof. I scheduled an appointment. I brought the binder. I didn't raise my voice. I just showed them the facts. When they saw her mugshot, 2 of them actually gasped. One said, "Oh my God, she's been leading the safety committee." I said, "Not anymore." Step 5, wait, build the case, strengthen the foundation. Because exposing Sandra wasn't enough. People like her don't go down cleanly, they claw and scream and throw accusations. I needed to strike once precisely, and in a way she couldn't twist into a lie. And that's when the second unexpected twist landed in my lap, one I did not see coming. It came from someone I didn't expect, someone who walked right up to my door as I was leaving the next morning. And what they told me. It changed everything. The knock came early. Around 7 a.m. I thought it was a package until I opened the door and saw Mr. Delaney, the quiet retired guy who lived 2 houses down. He always kept to himself. Always polite, always nodding but never talking. The kind of neighbor who mowed his lawn at the same time every Saturday like it was a ritual. I had never seen him look shaken before. He held his hat in his hands and kept glancing over his shoulder like someone was watching him. "Can I talk to you?" he whispered. "Of course," I said, stepping aside. "Everything okay?" He didn't come inside. He refused. Instead, he stood half in, half out of the doorway like he needed a fast escape route. "It's about your neighbor," he said quietly. My stomach tightened. "Sandra," he nodded. Then he swallowed like it took effort. "I heard what she's been doing to you and the boy, and his voice dropped even more. "I think I should tell you something." "What is it?" He leaned closer. "She did this before, not just what you think. Not just what she was arrested for." He paused, eyes darting down the street again. "There was another kid." I froze. "Another one?" "I lived in Mesa before coming here," he said. "Same neighborhood she used to live in." My pulse picked up. I felt my grip tighten on the doorframe. "She had a pattern," he whispered. "She'd pick a boy, usually someone quiet, someone who didn't know how to fight back. First, she wanted them close, too close. Then she'd panic. Then she'd turn on them." My throat felt dry. "Are you saying—" "She ruined that second boy's life," he said bluntly. "He was 16. She tried to flip the narrative when the parents found out, filed complaints. Told neighbors he was dangerous, spread rumors that he stalked her. Exactly what she was doing now. And the worst part," he continued, "she made so much noise, the HOA forced the family to move." I stared at him, stunned. "She did all that," he said, shaking his head. "And now she's doing it again. I kept quiet because I'm old and tired and I didn't want to get pulled into drama, but seeing that sign she put up, He looked at me, eyes tight with guilt. I can't watch her destroy another kid. I exhaled sharply. Why didn't you tell the HOA any of this before? He gave a bitter laugh. Because no one listens to old men until it's too late. Then he reached into his jacket and pulled out a folded piece of paper. I kept this from years ago, he said. A copy of the neighborhood incident report from Mesa. They never put it online, but I saved it because, he hesitated, because I knew she'd do it again. My chest tightened as I unfolded the paper. It was old, creased, typed on cheap printer paper, but legible. There it was, her name, the boy's name, a summary of her behavior, a warning issued by a neighborhood safety committee, a warning that she left town to avoid. Take it, he said. Use it, that boy, he never recovered from what she put him through. Please don't let her do this to your nephew. I felt a wave of cold fury wash through me, steady, focused, absolute. This wasn't just a pattern, this was a hunt. She had a type, vulnerable boys she could manipulate, demonize, and ultimately destroy to protect herself. But this time she targeted the wrong family, because now I had witnesses, I had records, I had history. I had a paper trail that tied her past and present into the same ugly truth. And with this new evidence, I could do something none of her previous victims were able to do. I could stop her. For good. I sat with that Mesa incident report in my hands for a long time after Mr. Delaney left. It wasn't just old paper. It felt radioactive. Every sentence confirmed something I already suspected but didn't want to believe. Sandra wasn't acting out of fear. She was acting out of control. And the deeper I read, the clearer the pattern became. She didn't target boys because she was scared of them. She targeted boys because she needed them to carry the weight of her own guilt. She needed someone to blame, so she never had to look at herself. But it went even deeper than blame. It was about rewriting her story, again and again, until she wasn't the villain anymore. In the Mesa report, the safety committee described her as compulsively defensive and said she had a strong, persistent need to be seen as a victim in all interpersonal conflicts. They said she would weaponize fear to control community narratives. Weaponize fear. Control narratives, destroy kids, over and over. And then I saw it, the detail that finally made everything inside me click into place like a lock snapping shut. A handwritten note in the margin, probably added during one of the committee's meetings years ago. She refuses to accept guilt, she must transfer it, needs a boy to carry her story for her. A boy, any boy. Whoever happened to be convenient. The 14-year-old she manipulated, she blamed him. The kid in Mesa she targeted afterward, she blamed him too. And now Ryan, he was just the next proxy. The next vessel for her self-pity. The next kid she could sacrifice to keep her own story intact. But there was something even colder. Something worse. As I dug deeper through the Mesa file, I found a pattern in the way she flipped her behavior once things started closing in on her. 1, she would show interest in a boy. Friendly, over-involved, boundary blurring. 2, she would panic when someone noticed. Suddenly the boy became dangerous, unpredictable, concerning. 3, she would launch a smear campaign. Flyers, petitions, rumors, accusations. 4, she would claim to be the true victim. I was threatened. He made me uncomfortable. I'm just protecting the community. 5, she would push until the boy was isolated or forced to leave. 6, then she moved. Fresh street, fresh neighborhood, fresh target. This wasn't misguided worry. It wasn't trauma. It wasn't paranoia. It was strategy. A cold, intentional, self-serving strategy to erase what she did by painting every boy around her as the threat. Because if the world was full of dangerous teen boys, then she wasn't a predator, she was a martyr. I realized then that she didn't just want Ryan gone. She needed Ryan ruined. She needed him to break in front of everyone so she could point and say, "See, I was right, I warned you." Ryan wasn't a person to her. He was a shield, a scapegoat, a way to keep her darkness hidden. That giant pervert house next door sign, that wasn't the act of a scared woman. That was the act of someone trying to burn the evidence before anyone looked too closely at her. And worse, she had already done it successfully, twice. But this time, she picked someone who had a guardian who wasn't going to fold. Someone who wasn't afraid of her. Someone who now knew exactly who she was, and exactly how to expose her. By the time I closed the Mesa file, my fear was gone. My shaking stopped. All that remained was purpose. Cold, steady purpose. Because if she wanted a narrative war, I was about to hand her the one ending she could never bury. Once I understood exactly what she was, how she operated, how she weaponized fear, how she used boys like stepping stones to climb out of her own guilt, I stopped reacting and started executing. Every move from that point on was deliberate. First, I contacted the HOA again and asked for an emergency meeting. They hesitated, until I said the words, "I have documentation showing she targeted minors in previous neighborhoods." That got their attention fast. I walked into the meeting room with the binder tucked under my arm, the same binder I had built page by page while she spread her poison around the neighborhood. I didn't start with the mugshot. I didn't start with the lawsuit. I didn't start with the Mesa incident report. I started with the sign she nailed to my fence. I laid a photo of it on the table. Then the flyers. Then statements from 2 neighbors. Then the record of the police wellness check she manipulated. They already looked horrified. Then I slid the mugshot across the table. Silence. Then I opened the binder to the lawsuit. More silence. Then, slowly, deliberately, I unfolded the Mesa incident report Mr. Delaney had given me. The room went dead still. One of the board members put her head in her hands. Another whispered, "She's been calling emergency meetings about safety." I said, "She's been leading your safety committee." That did it. When the meeting ended, they called an emergency vote suspending her from all HOA roles pending investigation. They also authorized an official harassment complaint on my behalf and instructed her to remove all signs and flyers within 24 hours or face fines. But that was just the beginning, because the HOA was the small-scale part. The real blow came next. I filed a formal complaint with the county with every piece of evidence attached: the defamation, the harassment, the false report she made to police, the pattern of targeting minors. I included the Mesa documents and the civil lawsuit. Legal aid helped me format it cleanly so it couldn't be dismissed as emotional noise. Then I notified the police department that the call she made was provably malicious and part of a long-term pattern. Then I sent an anonymous tip, containing only public records, to every house on the street through the neighborhood email list. No commentary, no embellishment, just facts, just the truth she had buried for years. 3 hours later, I heard shouting from her house. Her husband slammed the door so hard the siding rattled. A car peeled out of their driveway. Blinds were pulled shut. Her front porch light, which had been on every night for years, stayed dark. By morning, the giant sign was gone. By noon, the flyers were removed. By evening, she was served with a cease and desist. 2 days later, a moving truck pulled up, just like Mesa, just like before, except this time she wasn't fleeing victory. She was fleeing exposure. Ryan watched from the living room window, arms folded, face quiet but stronger than I'd seen in months. He didn't say anything at first. He just watched her house empty out piece by piece. When the truck pulled away, he exhaled and whispered, "She can't hurt anyone else now." "No," I said. "Not here," he nodded. And for the first time since he moved in, he walked outside with his shoulders relaxed. Neighbors who once avoided us suddenly apologized. A few dropped off baked goods. One offered to write a character reference for Ryan if he ever needed it. None of that erased the damage, but it showed him the world wasn't always going to believe monsters like her. That night, as we sat on the porch in the cool desert air, Ryan said, "Do you think she'll try this again somewhere else?" I looked at the closed binder on my lap. "I sent everything to the county in Mesa," I told him. "And to her last neighborhood, and to the state registry. Her story won't reset this time." He nodded slowly, letting that sink in. We sat there watching the sun dip behind the houses, our street finally quiet, finally ours again. "Guess we're the Pervert house no more," I said, nudging him lightly. He groaned, rolled his eyes, and laughed, really laughed, for the first time since he arrived. And that was the moment I knew we'd won.